So today is World Diabetes Day, and I am going to spend a little bit of time on video just really talking to you about why diabetes is important to us as podiatrists, but also to you as an individual too. So I'm going to get comfy with my coffee and a gold mug and tell you a little bit more. Let's go. Okay, so why is diabetes even important? I mean, I'm not going to go into a diatribe about what diabetes is. That's not for this video. But one of the things which is really interesting is when somebody said to me, why is diabetes important in foot health? I just turned around and went, well, it is. You know, to me, it's a bit like sun goes up in the morning, goes down in the evening, or, you know, the moon comes out overnight, or tides move. It's something which just is, and you don't argue with that. So I've had to really unpick two things. A, why is it important to me as a professional? And B, why is it important to you as a member of the general public, or a patient, or someone who's living with diabetes? And it's the question of, so what? And you know, why does that matter, and why is it important to me? So this isn't a video about going into the intricacies of diabetes. That's for another time. But really, it's just to help show you why it's important to me, and probably to help show me why it's important to me and other podiatrists and health professionals, and also to show you why it's important too. So diabetes has a massive effect on the economy. Statistics are going to be plastered all over this wall and all over the internet today, showing just the cost to the NHS alone. So 10% of the NHS budget goes towards diabetes and the complications, and 1% of the NHS budget goes towards the complications of diabetic foot problems. That's quite sobering when you think about it. You know, that's $1 billion for 1% and 10 billion for 10%. So it's a big business thing, and that's money which could be channeled into other places. But the two things which I tend to see in patients with diabetes where there is a complication is damage to nerves, changes to circulation. So I've talked before about ulceration. I've talked about my story of ulceration and how I've walked on an area I couldn't feel and I had a breakdown. And that's really what happens when you have a change to nerves. You damage the skin, you damage the soft tissue, you can damage the bone, and you don't know that damage is occurring, so you keep damaging it more and more and more. Now you add on top of that the problems with circulation, suddenly, you know, you've got real issues with healing. And that is where the cost comes from. We know statistically that once you've had an ulcer, your chance of having an amputation is massively increased, and we know that diabetes is a big risk of ulceration. So looking at the nerves and looking at the circulation is really, really important. And that's why we screen people. That's why there is a process in place to screen people's feet on an annual basis, or more often if their risk status needs it. That is already in place. But when I looked at the statistics which said that 1/3, so 1 in 3 of people with diabetes at diagnosis already have complications, suddenly you think, well, actually, we don't do anything until they reach that line of being diagnosed with diabetes. And that's the point where everything changes. But actually, all the change has been going on much, much sooner. And that's where I think screening is really, really important. And as a profession, I'd love to see us using a dental model where we're actually checking up on people's feet beforehand on a regular basis, and we're able to reduce the problems which might then lead to other issues of diabetes. So biomechanical changes and loading changes, or, you know, occupations which maybe put a bit of pressure on the feet, or maybe, you know, looking from a dietary perspective, looking at where diet can be changed in order to influence that too. There's so many things which we can look at professionally, and that's why it's important to us. The amount of time which we spend with people healing diabetic wounds, knowing that there's a risk it will happen again, it's amazing, and it's a big part of what we do professionally and what we do on the NHS. But why is it important to you? Well, I've told you my story about having an ulcer and how it affected me, and probably when I was younger I was a little bit more blasé, and yeah, mine's not to do with diabetes, but it's the same neurological and sensory loss changes. But what's really important is don't just think about how a hole in your foot can affect your day-to-day activity, you know, your mobility. Think about the time that you need to have it redressed. Think about the risk of infection. Think about the risk of amputation. So it affects your day-to-day activities, your ability to exercise, and that may, you know, affect your ability to maintain your weighted level. That's going to affect your mood. That's going to affect how you see the world around you. There's a bigger chance of depression. That's going to affect your relationships with your family and your children, your parents and your partner. It's going to affect your ability to work. There's so many knock-on effects from that hole in the foot due to a loss of sensation and poor circulation. It's a massive, massive thing. And, you know, I've come across so many people in my career who really are very, very down. They've got mental health problems. They've got problems with depression, which all stem from that hole in the foot. So I think it's really, really important. That's why it affects you guys. That's why it's important. And it may be that it affects you guys in that you have a partner or a parent or a child with diabetes who has these kind of problems. And that's where your role comes in to help them too. What I would love to see in the future is I'd love to see better screening. I'd love to see us able to actually check on people much, much earlier, to be able to follow them right the way through, to check and pick up on signs and changes which may well affect these things later on. I think it's really, really important. Diabetes is important to us as a profession. It's a big part of what we do. We do a lot of education on it, but it's important to you as a person as well, because either it's you who's affected or it's someone around you who's affected as well. And we know that the costs are much, much greater than the financial side too. So there you go. That was kind of a bit of a drop off at the end, but there you go. I'm going to enjoy the rest of my coffee. But listen, if there's any comments, any questions, anything you want to ask, drop them below. Podiatrists are out there. We can help you with your foot health. That's what we're there for. But anything you want to ask, in the comments below. You guys take care and enjoy World Diabetes Day. See you later. Bye-bye.